Hello, I'm standing outside a church near the old Lincolnshire town of Stamford. And in Stamford, on every Good Friday, there is a walk of witness, when members of the local Christian churches follow the figure of Christ carrying his cross through the town's market to the place of execution. For there Jesus will be placed on the cross, and there he will die, be taken down and carried away to his grave. And none of that's going to be done in a corner. Many people will be watching and trying to make sense of it all. And that's what we invite you to do now as you watch this video of the 2015 March. So let's join the crowd as Jesus begins his walk to Calvary.
We'll give a short flavour of a few bars and then please join in with enthusiasm and then follow the rest of the instructions as we go along.
Hello, hello, you're the in-laws, aren't you? I heard you were coming over, nice to meet you. Let's get you doing good time.
Demonstration, it's a drama, and it's just a remembrance really of the things that happened on that first Good Friday. We're going to contrast it a bit though in that we will be walking in silence behind the drama of Christ carrying his cross rather than baying for his death as the crowds did on that first Good Friday. And it's a solemn remembrance that will speak volumes to those who see it, so please try and do that. And when we process, do try and keep together and somewhere near the cross. And if you can't walk very quickly, then please allow those who can to overtake you, so that we keep somewhere near together when we arrive at the station at the other end of Iron Street and then back Almighty and everlasting God, who in your tender love towards the human race sent your Son, our Saviour, Jesus Christ, to take upon him our flesh and to suffer death upon the cross, grant that we may follow the example of his patience and humility, and also be made partakers of his resurrection, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Then the whole assembly rose and led Jesus off to Pilate, and they began to accuse him, saying, "We have found this man subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar and claims to be Messiah, a king." So Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You have said so," Jesus replied. Then Pilate announced to the chief priests and the crowd, "I find no basis for a charge against this man." But they insisted. "He stirs up the people all over Judea by his teaching. He started in Galilee and has come all the way here." On hearing this, Pilate asked if the man was a Galilean. When he learned that Jesus was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at that time. When Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased, because for a long time he had been wanting to see him. From what he had heard about him, he hoped to see him perform some sort of sign. He plied him with many questions, but Jesus gave no answer. The chief priests and the teachers of the law were standing there, vehemently accusing him. Then Herod and his soldiers ridiculed him and mocked him. Dressing him in an elegant robe, they sent him back to Pilate. That day, Herod and Pilate became friends. Before this, they had been enemies. Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, and said to them, "You brought me this man as one who is inciting people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence and have found no basis for your charges. Neither has Herod, for he has sent him back to us. As you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore I will punish him and release him." But the whole crowd shouted, "Away with this man! Release Barabbas to us!" Barabbas had been thrown into prison for an insurrection in the city and for murder. Wanting to release Jesus, Pilate appealed to them again, but they kept shouting, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" For the third time he spoke to them. "Why? What crime has this man committed? I have found in him no grounds for a death penalty. Therefore I will have him punished and release him." But with louds that insistently demanded he be crucified, their shouts prevailed. So Pilate decided to grant their demand. He released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, the one they asked for, and surrendered Jesus to his will.
Good help! You, and you, help!
What time is it now?
It was about 9 o'clock in the morning when they nailed him to the cross. People passing by actually jeered. You bragged you could tear down the temple and build it again in 3 days? Right, show us your stuff. Get yourself out of this. If you really are the Son of God, come down from that cross, now. And the priests, too. Oh, they were having a great time poking fun at him. He saved others, but it appears he can't save himself. Oh, but if he comes down from the cross, we'll all become believers. By now, it was noon, and the whole sky became extremely dark. The darkness lasted about 3 hours, a kind of blackout. Midway through the afternoon, Jesus cried out, my God, why have you abandoned me?" But then something happened in the temple. The huge curtain, that great veil, all 60 feet of it, was ripped apart, as if by an invisible hand, torn down the middle, from top to bottom. And from the cross, Jesus said, "It's done. Accomplished. Finished." And then Jesus said, "Father, into your hands I now place myself, utterly." And with those words, he died.
Here is love vast as the ocean, loving kindness as the flood. When the Prince of Life our ransom shed for us his precious blood, who his love will not remember, who can cease to sing his praise? He can never be forgotten throughout heaven's eternal days. On the mount of crucifixion, fountains open deep and wide. Through the floodgates of God's mercy flowed a vast and gracious tide. Grace and love like mighty rivers poured incessant from above, and heaven's peace and perfect justice kissed a guilty world in love. Here is love vast as the ocean, loving kindness as the flood. When the Prince of Life our ransom shed for us his precious blood.
Time of death, 3 o'clock, on the nail. Can I have you? And you next to him. Can you come up here, please?
You know, I haven't seen many dead bodies before, but that guy, I mean, yuck, he really has snuffed it. Well, goodbye, Mr. Dead as a Doornail. Won't be seeing you again.
You mean, you hope we won't?
What do you mean, I hope I won't? You saw it. They're carrying him off, as dead as a doornail.
Yeah, but I've seen that bloke before. He was amazing. The things he said and did. And I was talking with his mates earlier. You know, he knew he was going to get it today. He knew it.
Yeah, but if he walked willingly into that...
He'd be like as hard as nails. I was talking with my mate. You know, she said... Well, actually, no. I'm all in a muddle. I can't believe what's just happening. He said something really weird.
Yeah.
He said that the day after tomorrow, he would come back from the dead.
Well, I mean, that is weird, because, you know, when you're dead, you are dead.
I know. But he did seem to have some sort of spooky sort of power about him. I was talking with my neighbour the other day. She said apparently he stopped his cousin's funeral in its tracks. In its tracks. The next thing they knew, the cousin was up, out of the coffin, and everybody was celebrating.
No, that's crazy. It must have been a trick, some sort of con. I bet he had a body double. But anyway, the guy's dead now. He isn't coming back. He won't be playing any more tricks. Besides, it's Stamford. It's a Friday. It's a market day. Nothing spooky ever happens in Stamford.
Well, you're right. They certainly carried him off dead just now. But it's not today I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about what he said. Yeah, it's Friday. But Sunday's coming. It's Friday, but Sunday's coming.
You are soft in the head. He's on his way to this cemetery. He isn't coming back. I mean, if he did, he'd be like nobody else on it.
No matter what you believe, there's no doubt that a man called Jesus was executed in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. We have contemporary documents to prove it, not just the Christian scriptures. The question is not, did it happen? But the real question is, why did it happen? Jesus was not a victim of circumstance. Events did not run away with him. He didn't get caught by surprise on the events of that Friday 2,000 years ago. All the accounts make it clear that he chose the confrontation with the authorities. He knew what it would mean. He knew where it would end. And he warned his friends about it in advance. In fact, the centurion in charge of the execution had seen it all before. He'd done many of them. He'd seen men crying out for hours and hours in torment on the cross, begging to be put out of their misery. But not Jesus. Jesus stayed all but quiet. And this one centurion thought that this man was as hard as nails. Surely a son of God. But still, why? Was this just some self-destructive will on the part of Jesus? Perhaps an early example of extreme piercing. Writing hundreds of years before, a man called Isaiah said this: "He was pierced for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed." Now, it's often been said that today we know the cost of everything, but the value of nothing. We're used to things having a cost. In fact, I was in a tea shop not far from here just a few days ago, and I overheard two people at the next door table saying, well, in fact, they were eating one very big cream cake at the time, and they said, "I'm going to have to pay for this later." And I'm sure they didn't mean the price tag. We're used to things having a cost. But have you ever thought what the cost of your life is? A singer-songwriter called Graham Kendrick, a couple of decades ago, wrote these words. If you heard that your life had been valued, that a price had been paid on the nail, would you ask what was traded, how much, and who paid it? Who was he, and what was his name? If you heard that his name was called Jesus, would you say that the price was too dear? Held to the cross not by nails but by love. It was you broke his heart, not the spear. Would you say you are worth what it cost him? You say no, but the price, it stays the same. If it don't make you cry, well, laugh it off. Pass by. But remember that day when you throw it away. He paid what he thought you were worth. Last week, several thousand people gathered to watch the bones of a dead king be reburied in the city of Leicester. 2,000 years ago, a different crowd proclaimed Jesus as king, but you won't find his remains under a car park. His grave is empty, and he didn't need a bunch of archaeologists to prise him out of it. He came out of it under his own steam by the power of God. When Jesus hung dying on a cross, much more violent than this one, he didn't just take your place. He took on death face to face. And even though death dragged him down, he broke through on the Easter day and defeated death itself. And he gives that victory to each of us. Amen.
Amen.
art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Good Friday is a solemn day for Christians. You saw the drama. Jesus was executed, was soon in his grave, and his enemies were delighted. But his mother was in bits, and most of his disciples had legged it. A very unimpressive start to the Christian church. But all of that happened on the Friday. But Sunday was coming, and the Sunday changed everything. For Jesus of Nazareth, they say, was raised from the dead. And the historical evidence for that is remarkably strong. Millions are convinced by it. But that's ridiculous, you say. It's completely impossible. Only the big guy, only God could do something like that. And all told, Jesus of Nazareth wouldn't be like anybody else on earth. And you're quite right, only God could do it, and Jesus wouldn't be like anybody else on earth. But it looked as if it really happened once. And so the question we're always left with is, who in heaven's name was he? And of course, there's no firm historical record of him dying a second time. So perhaps the real question we're left with is, who in heaven's name is he?